Okie dokie. So if you've been playing Dune, whether you've been exploring shipwrecks or maybe you wanted to go get jasmium in the Sheol area, you've encountered radiation. Radiation level 1, 2, and 3. And you've probably wondered how the hell that even hurts you, if even. Now, you know a lot of people out there believe that radiation hurts your vehicles when you're in those areas. And I'm here to tell you exactly how each level of radiation works, how radiation protection works, and then also to clarify that no, radiation does not hurt your vehicles. You're perfectly fine. That said, you inside the vehicle are still totally fucked if you don't get out of there in time. In terms of shipwrecks, I don't think shipwrecks ever have higher than a radiation level of 2, but when it comes to Sheol, you typically have a general radiation level of 1 everywhere, go figure. As you get closer to jasmium nodes on the map, you will get a radiation level of 2. And then if you ever stand in the literal mush that is around jasmium, you will get a radiation level 3, which will murder the fuck out of you. Note, though, that you do basically, your player model has to be inside of that mush in order to actually get radiation level 3. In a buggy, it's impossible. So if you're a miner who comes down from the north and drives your buggy all the way down, you don't have to be afraid of driving your buggy into the mush because the mush isn't going to hurt your buggy, and as long as you're driving the buggy or in the turret seat of the buggy, you'll only be at radiation level 2. But what does 2, 3, all this shit mean? I have put together a chart for you guys to explain how each level of radiation works and at each percentage, and we're going to talk about exponential gains in terms of radiation reduction with this. So first off is going to be radiation level 1. So in your radiation bar, it says you can hold 150,000 radiation before you die. Note that when your radiation bar is filling up at 75%, it's no longer going to show you what progress you're at on the bar, and the whole radiation indicator is just going to turn red. That means you have 25% or less remaining. But in a radiation level 1, your radiation bar fills by 1500 radiation per second. Given that you can hold 150,000 radiation, that does mean that you can take 100 seconds while completely naked and 0% radiation protection to die. There's a lot of people who laugh at the iodine pills or the difference between like the Mark IV, the Mark V, and the Mark VI suits, because the Mark IV gives a 90% radiation protection, the Mark V gives a 92% radiation protection, and the Mark VI gives a 93% radiation protection. But every percent matters. If you've played games with damage reduction, or if you played First Descendant and you watch some of my videos and you understand how fire rate works, the scaling here is exponential. So that is how reductions work. If let's say you had a radiation suit that gave you a 50% reduction, that means it takes twice as long to kill you from radiation. So it would take 200 seconds to kill you. But in a Mark IV rad suit, you have 90% reduction, and 90% reduction means it takes 10 times as long to kill you. And that's why every percent matters once you start getting really high in exponential scaling. And that's why over here, I posted, And that's why over here, I put the total gain over naked. So you have a 24 times gain if you're using a Mark VI plus iodine pill over being naked. And as you increase every little percent, that number goes even higher, because 3% is obviously not a big gain. 90% is obviously going to be a 9 times gain, which is why I say that's 10 times the amount. 92 changes to 11.5, 93 changes to 13.2, and then 95 is 19, and then 95 is 19, and 96 is 24. So if you're ever wondering to yourself, does that extra percent matter? The answer is yes. If you ever want to spend a long time in radiation zones, you need to make sure that you're using as high a percent as you possibly can. Because for example, at 96% with the Mark VI and an iodine pill active, iodine pills last for 10 minutes, by the way, so you would need to refresh. But with this pairing, you could last in a radiation zone for 41.5 minutes. That is a long fucking time. That said, in most of the places you're going to be mining, like jasmium, you're not going to be in a level 1 radiation zone. So the amount of radiation you gain per second changes. So let's talk about radiation level 2. Instead of being 1500 a second, you now get 3000 a second. Obviously, that is literally doubling the radiation per second that you gain, so any amount of time that you could spend before is now halved. So instead of 41 minutes, like you can in a level 1 radiation zone, you can now spend 20 minutes in a level 2 radiation zone, which is more than enough to hit up all of the jasmium nodes in a buggy and then fuck off. But what about radiation level 3? Why did I earlier say it will murder the fuck out of you? That's because radiation level 3 gives you 15,000 radiation a second. meaning if you're naked, you will die in 10 seconds. That said, even with the highest radiation protection available right now, using the Mark 6 rad suit and an iodine pill, you will still die in 4.2 minutes, which is not that long. So please, please, do not bathe in the highly radioactive material, and you will be just fine. Last thing to address real quick, though, is the bit where people think that radiation will damage your vehicles. It can't. But aside from my personal experience driving a buggy around with my friend, we literally drove into the radiation pools and our buggy wasn't damaged. And because we were driving and in the turret seat, we never got higher than radiation level 2. So besides my personal experience with that, I also decided to bring my ornithopter over and test just a 5-minute interval, inactive, not being in the ornithopter. Would it damage my vehicle? 5 minutes, because if you watch the ornithopter video, that's how long I was using for a time interval on all of my durability tests. Okay, so the purpose of this test real quick is because there's a lot of people that are thinking that radiation damages your vehicles. It doesn't, but to show that, I'm repairing my ornithopter to full, to the point that nothing can repair it anymore. And then I will wait here in a level 2 radiation zone for 5 minutes, which is the highest level radiation you're ever going to see in a vehicle, by the way. Because the only way you're ever going to see radiation level 3 is if you're standing directly in a radiated slag. Ornithopter is repaired to full, and I will start a timer. Okay, 5 minutes are up. Check here. No damage. 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 And no damage.